"That's impossible," Vanessa whispered. "He's dead. I saw him die." But the man helping her move the body was someone who wasn't supposed to exist anymore. The courtroom went silent. Even the stenographer stopped typing. On screen, grainy but undeniable, a tall male figure helping Vanessa drag a body-sized tarp onto the dock behind the boathouse. The timestamp was March 6th, 2 days before the 911 call. The man's face never appeared, but the shape, gait, and build were a near-perfect match for Lance Whitaker, and that name rang alarms across the courtroom. Lance Whitaker was a disgraced former homicide detective and Vanessa's ex-investigator. 5 years earlier, he'd been accused of planting evidence in a high-profile murder case Vanessa prosecuted. The fallout was nuclear. He disappeared during the investigation. His last known location was a motel in Idaho, where he was believed to have drowned during a hiking trip just weeks after resigning. They found his clothes. They found his rental car. They never found a body. And now, here he was, on video, assisting in body disposal. Detectives swarmed back into the field. If Lance had faked his death, he had help. They pulled Vanessa's bank records and found 6 years' worth of small, consistent withdrawals, all ending up in an account under a fake LLC in Nevada. That LLC had a single active lease, a storage unit outside Eugene. Inside that unit, authorities found a burner laptop, fake IDs and the name Andrew Gates, a passport, and a recent photo of Lance Whitaker in a baseball cap and sunglasses, standing next to Vanessa Hartley, smiling at a roadside diner in Montana, dated 5 months before Mark disappeared. The official theory began to shift fast. This wasn't just a murder. This was a long con. 6 years earlier, after Lance's career imploded, he vanished. Vanessa, who had just been promoted to lead prosecutor, was publicly furious, but in private, she kept in contact. He became her ghost investigator. Off the books. No one knew. She paid him through shell companies and kept him buried behind proxies. Why? Because he knew things about her cases, about the skeletons in her closet. But here's where things get even more twisted. In an anonymous tip sent to a local crime podcast 2 weeks after Vanessa's arrest, someone claimed that Mark Hartley wasn't her first secret. Vanessa's done this before. The tip read, check, 2016. That's where the bodies are buried. Literally. The message came with coordinates. Detectives followed it to a remote cabin in Central Oregon, owned by Lance's father, who died years ago. And what they found flipped the case upside down. Buried beneath the shed was a sealed oil drum. Inside, the decomposed remains of a man later identified as Jeff Rourke, 42, a former assistant DA who resigned abruptly in 2016 after a sexual harassment claim against Vanessa was leaked to press. Vanessa had denied everything, claimed it was a smear. Jeff had never pressed charges, and the DA's office quietly let him go. And now he was dead. Forensics showed he was likely bludgeoned and buried shortly after the scandal broke. But Vanessa had an airtight alibi back then, too. And she knew that case had been buried with her former investigator, Lance. Until now, at this point, Vanessa's trial was suspended pending a larger investigation. The DA's office was torn open. All her cases were re-examined. Over 40 convictions reviewed. Several overturned due to potential evidence tampering. The press called her the angel of death row, but Vanessa kept quiet. Her lawyer, Julia Klein, begged her to talk. "You don't understand," Vanessa finally said. "Mark wasn't the plan. He changed everything." Then she slid a note across the table. 5 words. He found the cabin key. Vanessa's narrative slowly started to emerge, twisted and fragmented. According to a leaked pretrial report, Vanessa claimed Mark had discovered a locked box in her closet, a key to the cabin, a burner phone, and a journal that allegedly detailed every shady thing she and Lance had done for years, including Jeff Rourke's death. She said Mark confronted her, said he was going to the police, that she begged him to stay quiet. He said if I didn't resign and confess, he'd leak it all. But why not run? Why not destroy the journal? Why not let it go? Because he wasn't bluffing, she said. He had already sent a copy to someone, and I didn't know who. That someone, it turns out, was Rachel, her assistant. She had the drive, the screenshots, the cabin location. Mark had given it to her just in case. But Rachel didn't go to the police. She didn't leak anything. Why? Because of one message, sent her the day before Mark vanished. If anything happens to me, she did it, but if you speak now, you'll be next. Meanwhile, federal authorities had tracked Lance Whitaker to a small cabin outside Jackson Hole, Wyoming. They raided it just before dawn. Inside, multiple passports, $120,000 in cash, a wall covered in clippings about Vanessa's cases. Lance was gone, but the place reeked of bleach. And in the tub, forensic teams found a tooth, later matched to Lance. So the question became, had Vanessa eliminated him too? Or was this another performance? The DA believed Vanessa had planned to kill Lance all along, that he had become a liability, that she staged one last meeting, lured him in and vanished him. Except 2 days later, something insane happened. A man walked into the KGW 8 Portland news station, left an envelope, and disappeared. Inside was a USB stick, and on it, a recording. Vanessa, in the boathouse, talking to Lance. 2 nights before Mark's death. He's going to ruin everything, she says. Then we finish it. Lance replies, no killing. I'll scare him. I'll threaten him. Just enough to keep him quiet. You don't scare people like Mark. You bury them. Boom. The DA had motive, conspiracy, and intent. But also, proof Vanessa didn't directly plan to kill Mark. So who did? Who went off script? And more importantly, who sent the USB? That mystery deepened when the envelope was tested. It had no fingerprints. But underneath the stamp, forensic techs found a tiny smear of blood, too degraded for a full DNA profile, but enough to confirm it wasn't Vanessa's, and it wasn't Lance's. It belonged to a third party, which meant someone else, a ghost in the system, was watching the entire thing unfold and leaking information at just the right time. Vanessa's second pre-trial hearing was set. The public wanted blood. Protesters held signs. Justice for Mark. She lied for years. What else is she hiding? Inside the courtroom, Klein tried to get bail denied. She claimed Vanessa was a danger to no one, but the judge had other ideas. He cited the cabin body, the audio, the burner phones, a blood trail, and the disappearance of Lance. You are at the center of a violent conspiracy spanning over half a decade, the judge said. Bail is denied. Vanessa stared straight ahead. Not a flinch, not a blink. Then, as the guards moved to cuff her, she turned to Julia and whispered, "He's alive, and he's coming for me." The next morning, Julia Klein was found unconscious in her own car, drugged, with a note taped to the dashboard. One of you talks, the other one dies. You choose. Authorities ruled it attempted kidnapping, but the fingerprints inside the car matched a name from 6 years ago. Donovan Creel, an ex-con Vanessa put away for aggravated assault, released 3 months prior. But the connection? Creel used to share a cell with Lance Whitaker, and now he was missing too, which raised a terrifying question. Is this bigger than Vanessa and Lance? Is someone building a network? On July 1st, the Portland courthouse received a second package. Inside, a Polaroid photograph. Vanessa in jail, talking to a man through the visitation glass. Not her lawyer, and not a stranger. The man was Lance Whitaker. He was alive, which meant he had let himself be seen. He wanted them to know he wasn't gone, and that he still had unfinished business. Who is orchestrating the chain of secrets, fake deaths, and revenge plots behind Vanessa Hartley? Who is the third party leaking tapes and bodies? And what do they want next? Subscribe to Whispers of Crime, Motive, and Murder for the final part of this shocking trilogy.